It's time now for the political analysis of Fromm and Fuller. Al Fromm, former political advisor to President Bill Clinton, and Craig Fuller, former political advisor to both President Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. Good afternoon, all. Craig, the country witnessed President Trump once again not going quietly into that good night over the last week. He didn't sign the COVID-19 relief bill until the very last minute, and that caused a lot of chaos for a lot of Americans. Any payoff for Donald Trump after this drama has ended, and any lasting change or damage to the process?
If it has a lasting effect, I suspect it's going to actually further damage his standing overall. He seems to be completely committed to creating, as you use the word, chaos. There's no perceived positive impact that he's having. I'm surprised that his Secretary of Treasury didn't resign, having gone to the Hill and negotiated in good faith with both parties and both the House and Senate on behalf of the administration, then to have the president say, well, it's not really what I stand for and it's an embarrassment, is really an embarrassment for his own administration. So it was another week of this prolonged agony of a departure. This one I don't see, however, helps him even with his own group. I mean, he seems to be walking away from many in his base who are greatly in need of the benefits coming from the economic relief package and related to COVID especially. So I don't know. It's really inexplicable. It keeps him in the news. It keeps him on the front page, I guess. Maybe that's what he's hoping to get out of all of this.
Al, any difference of opinion here?
I don't really understand why he would do that. The short-term damage is that for a lot of people, including a lot of his supporters, the aid is going to be delayed, but probably not long enough to make that much of a difference. To me, I guess the only payoff I can see from this whole prolonged effort to delay the election or avoid conceding is he's still raising money, probably for his criminal defense fund when he leaves office. But as I've said before, in 3 weeks he's going to be gone, and even if he tries to be a squatter in the White House, as of noon on January 20th, the good news is Joe Biden has the presidential power and the authority, and he's the guy who can order the military to evict him. But, I think that these antics over the last month, and that seem to be continuing, are causing really considerable harm. This persistent campaign to promote the baseless claim of fraud does tend to undermine the democratic election process, and that could have some long-term ramifications. But more particularly, his call to his fringe supporters like the Proud Boys to come to Washington on January 6th, when you combine it to Senator Hawley's effort now to try to force a debate on the acceptance of the Electoral College vote, those actions do have the potential of causing violence. Last time the Proud Boys came to town, it was a pretty rough time. So that is real damage. I think failing to cooperate with the Biden transition, particularly in national security, does undermine the Biden administration's ability in the early days to start in dealing with threats from day one. I think perhaps the worst thing is the slow rollout of the vaccine, which vaccination program, which probably is because of not a lot of planning, even though I have to admit that that's complicated. But with the president playing golf every day instead of trying to do something about it, I mean, you got to believe that's going to cost some lives, maybe even thousands. His failure to, all these things have happened in the last few weeks. His failure to respond to the Russian digital, hacking attack A lot of military people think this is the worst thing that's happened since Pearl Harbor. That's got to make us less safe. He's replaced his defense secretary and the attorney general now with acting secretaries, and he already had an acting secretary in Homeland Security, and that opens the door for more annex, like his order to pull troops from Afghanistan and Germany, which the military opposed, and his misuse of the presidential pardons. Is this irreparable damage? Probably not, but it is real damage, and it weakens the country, and it makes us more vulnerable until the next president really gets his foothold in the office.
Hey, Al, sticking with you, and since Fromm comes before Fuller, I wonder if you might start a new tradition on Fromm and Fuller with a prediction for next year. On the political front, what is your top pick for 2021, and maybe a little background about why?
My prediction is that President Trump will be quickly abandoned and even forgotten by his political friends, but not by his political adversaries. As of noon on January 20th, he'll no longer have either the presidential power or the protections of the presidency. The loss of presidential power will quickly diminish his ability to command the public stage and to intimidate his political allies. His loss of protection, of the protections of the presidency, probably more serious, will empower his political adversaries or opponents, including the Manhattan District Attorney and the New York Attorney General, to pursue civil and criminal investigations into actions both before and during his presidency. What's likely to come out of those investigations is, in my view, is probably more likely to make him look like a mafia boss than a political leader. And I think even his most reliable sycophants are going to be willing to desert him. And the main thing is he's not going to have any political clout, really, to keep them in. I think he has illusions of running for president in 2024, but I think he's more likely to be running from the slammer. A new crop of presidential hopefuls is going to emerge very quickly in the Republican Party, and they're not likely to be deterred waiting for Trump to make a comeback. And they're probably even going to be more determined to avoid his passing this mantle of Trumpism to one of his kids like Don Jr. or Ivanka. I'm sure one of them, maybe more, maybe Senator Hawley's already doing it, is making the pitch to be the advocate for the Trump base. But I suspect Trumpism will be much less of a political force with Trump, without Trump in the White House. So I predict Republicans will be looking forward to a Trumpless future and not backward to the glory days of Donald Trump. Ronald Reagan, he's not. In contrast, I predict his adversaries will not be quite so forgetful. From the day he first refused to release his tax returns, a lot of people, particularly in my party, have been suspicious that he's hiding some nefarious activities, and there's plenty of it. All the disclosures of the last 4 years have only added to that. But Trump, to his credit, I guess, short term, used his the formidable powers and protections of the presidency to avoid, basically to foil those investigations and even avoid his removal when he was impeached. But he's no longer going to have those protections. Just this weekend, the Manhattan DA announced that he was going to expand his investigation. Now, I don't have any idea what they're going to find. But I predict when he releases his conclusions, we'll better understand why Trump has worked so hard to avoid leaving the White House.
Greg, what is your prediction for the new year?
I look at the new year and I agree that I think Trump will fade. I actually think that we're due for economic growth, and that's something that makes the nation feel better about themselves and about their leader. I think Joe Biden will, a year from now, be much stronger than he is today, actually, politically. and even physically. I think he's going to be appearing far more robust than some people think. Trump, I wish no ill on anyone, but Trump, I think, is going to have a very difficult time dealing not only with his loss, but his loss of all of the surroundings that he's enjoyed for the last 4 years, as Al was suggesting. I think he's going to find it very difficult to maneuver in a world where the morning tweet doesn't suddenly become the story of the day. And there's nothing worse for him than being ignored. And I think for many people, they're going to choose to ignore him as the country gets stronger. I do worry about COVID. I think that we're not going to get as far along with the vaccination program and these vaccines as one would hope. I think it will be like so many other things in the country, there'll be disparities. So, people like me, approaching 70, will be getting the vaccine, and you'll have segments of the population who are quite healthy and returning to more normal kinds of lifestyles. Others in the country who choose not to get the vaccine, or for whatever reason economically don't go down that path, are going to find that the illness continues. And so I worry that this is going to be with us for some time. I do think that COVID and our reaction to it will tend to recast the economy in ways that last. In other words, I think people are going to rely much more than we did before COVID on having things delivered to them, less on going out, less on going to big box retailers or to malls. And that has obviously implications, advantages for those who are into shipping and disadvantages for people who have these large assets. I worry about my friends in the restaurant industry, but those who have been flexible enough and to create carry-out opportunities or outdoor dining, I think will continue to succeed. But I do think this has lasting impact, and something that the Biden administration is going to be facing throughout the entire 4 years of the presidency. Lastly, on the short-term note, I would say that after these special elections, Republicans are likely to still be in charge of the Senate, but it is very close. And you'll see more coalitions form where Republicans and Democrats come together on some things and force votes in the Senate, something that will make Mitch McConnell's life much more complicated. And then in a Rose Bowl that's not being played in my home town of Pasadena, but in Dallas, I predict Notre Dame's going to win in the Rose Bowl.
Well, and Craig Fuller, you have not only the last word for this program for the whole year of 2020. Al Fromm, Craig Fuller, thanks so much. Happy New Year. We'll see you next year.
Happy New Year.